So I do things like in numbers. I know it's kind of embarrassing, but like, let's say when I
Well,
was
I'm
little.
the second largest numerologist on Twitter. That's why I'm
Oh, that's
asking.
cool. Okay, so
Yeah.
basically, I do things in numbers, and Epstein said, "Well, that's actually numerology." And I'm like, "I don't know what that is." And he goes, "Yeah." And he was talking to me about the magic of it and how you can change things like in real time by using numbers. And he was so obsessed with, I don't think he knew much about science at all. I don't think any of them do. Elon Musk is a liar. Bill Gates is a liar. They're all liars, and they're all part of a large mafia that harms children in my opinion. I have to add that because everyone sues me. But
You,
basically, in my
yeah.
experience, I have to add that. But I think that Epstein was so obsessed with math, and that's how he was able to finagle his way into being an informant and working for Bill Barr's father as a professor when he only had a high school degree at the top university. I mean, at the top high school where you have to have a PhD in Manhattan, where all the billionaires' kids go. Epstein got to teach there. And yes, he has victims from there. And that was in the 80s. So our government knew all along.
When you said he's obsessed
That's
with math,
Mr. Zerka.
yeah.
There's hands. Like if
Oh
I'll
shit.
give
Okay,
you
my
the
bad.
mic after this. That's they've been waiting for a long time. I'll give you the mic after this.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm wondering about all the conspiracy theories that say these guys are Satanists or they do black magic and all that. Did you see any of that?
Okay, they're fully satanic. And again, I'm going to go with that thing, the God voice, the gut. You feel the energy around them. I had a really weird experience where it's embarrassing. I thought Guylain's eyes were like red. I don't mean the pupil, I mean around the eyes. And then Epstein later said that like she had an injury or something. But it was when she would look at the door and she'd say, "I'm going to get the nubiles. I'm going to get the nubiles right now." Sorry, my little dog. And when she would say that, she would get this look of pure, unbridled evil. And there was absolute, I would say to my mother afterwards, Satan was showing. And when I went online after the case broke, I would do hashtag Satan is showing. And nobody would copy it. They were like, "Oh, she's crazy. What's she talking about?" This is what I'm talking about. Demons do demonic things. If you look at the people in Palestine, what's being done to them, if that's not demonic and if that's not hell, then I don't know what is. And these are the same exact people. Leslie Wexner is behind all of it. And I thought after the Rafah bombing, the whole thing would end because the world would freak out and intervene. And it didn't happen. I just can't believe it.
Mr. Zerka.
Yeah. Uh, who were Jeffrey's best friends? Like, who did you see him around the most? Like, what are the big names?
Okay, so he didn't have friends. He had people that were kissing his bottom in society, in every echelon of society. So let's say like the top hairdressers, the top modeling agencies, they were always like dripping on him, salivating all over him, talking about, "You're the most amazing man in the world, Jeffrey Epstein. You are it. You are so gorgeous." He wasn't gorgeous at all. He wasn't ugly, but he looked like Simone Molchuk in a pair of pants instead of a skirt. He wasn't gorgeous. He had an ugly face a little bit. With that, they all have this, the elites I'm speaking of, ugh, they all have this Cheshire grin. It's creepy. And whenever I see that Cheshire grin, I run. I don't care if they're nice. I'm not giving them a chance because I've been through it. And that's trauma, right? And it's not racism, it's trauma. But I did see them being doted on, but he didn't have any friends. And I asked Chef Andy one day, "Does Epstein have any friends?" And he goes, "God, no. He goes through people like water." And I didn't know what it meant. And he was abusive. Oh, he turned on people
How,
too. Like he blackmailed people
so, how much of his day felt like he wasn't even working? He was
the
just
whole day,
lounging,
the whole day.
or
And I asked him, I
oh
said, "How do
wow.
you have all this money?" And he said, "When you work for Wexner and he's a billionaire, you only need one client. So you don't have to work very hard." And I was like, "God, I'm working so hard for you for $800 a month." 1,000, whatever. It was so hard. And he's like, yeah, it'll come to you one day. I'm like, I don't think so. You know,
Okay, Unum, the Urgi, American Muslim, then Wally.
it was to mess with the minds of women, but it was more mind messing. Like nobody was getting their blood drawn or sucked out of their body. Nobody was murdered there. It was literally sex, and trick. So people like Jess Staley would be compromised, and then then they had power over the banks, and then they had power over the government, and then they had. You got to think less conspiracy, more reality, because reality is worse. Look at Palestine. What could be worse? This is what they do to people. What else do you need? It's like, fuck. Now I know everyone believes me, right? I wish it wasn't at this cost. It's devastating. And then it was all about trying to see who has a soul and who doesn't. So the women that didn't have souls stayed 6 to 13 years and took all the money. Epstein said, I'll give you whatever you want. And I said, I want my soul and my sister. So it's not, um, I think once you've, like, I know I was sodomized as a spiritual theft. It was spiritual theft. And so I think every time they harmed one of the girls, it was taking part of their soul. So in that way, it is spiritual, but it's not tangible. It's not like you can go, ah, I can tell there's a demon flying around. Do you see that bat? Do you see that? It wasn't like that. But Liz Crokin wants us to think it was so she can sell Pizzagate and have a lot of followers and lie about me to Juliet Bryant, who knows the truth because she's one of my precious angel friends. And she was a supermodel that was on the island, trapped. And she has so much trauma. It's like, it's really infuriating to see these. It doesn't matter that they're super beautiful, but why it matters to me is that because my sister was one of them, first of all, but also because they were so delicate and young and vulnerable as women that beautiful. And they weren't even aware of their beauty, like this girl, Marika, that was harmed badly by Rena O, who then went on and sued Virginia. And she pretends to be a victim, and she was one of them. And the ones that were hired, they were ugly. They're very ugly. They're very masculine looking faces, very ugly, dark hair, not pretty dark black hair, but like dirty looking. I don't know how to explain it. And just not nice. They all look freaking crazy, the ones that harmed us. And no, women aren't always, don't believe all women. I think they're just as evil. And it's really too bad. But the women that are in Congress, I don't trust a single one of them. I'm like, what do they have on them? Huh. He told me that Ghislaine's sisters were like heavily involved with some kind of search engine or something. And he said, for the government. And then Ghislaine showed me her photo albums, and she went on about it in detail that the sisters were inventors and that they were spies. And I thought she was kidding. And I can't use any email without getting it hacked and taken down. Isn't that funny? And I have to change my phone numbers every day, and I have to move all the time. And Ghislaine promised me, she said, oh, we're going to get you. And we're going to shoot you twice. And this was when I lived in South Carolina. And I loved it. And I had to move to the mountains of nowhere. And she said, we'll get you like Mossad. We'll shoot you twice in the back of the head. And you'll never see it coming. And do you know what it's like to watch what they're doing? The survivor's guilt. I would throw myself down in front of any bullet to just save one little beautiful baby because I'm already unhealthy and I've been through hell. It's time to leave. I'd be happy, but I can't do that. And it's so frustrating. I don't know if that answered Sam.
No, no. Any insight is interesting. That's interesting. What time frame was that when she was telling you about her sisters and them being spies?
Okay, so that's in 1995.
Hmm.
And here's something else you might find kind of interesting. So this was my insight into how they traffic and how they groom, rather. So Ghislaine, I was at the 71st Street mansion, and she said, "You're going to come with me to my apartment." And I said, "Okay." And I went over there a couple times. But the weird part is when I walked in, there was my art from my apartment that I had made in school. It had been stolen, and she had it framed on the wall. And I'm like, where'd you get that? And she goes, oh, I liked it, so I took it. So they'd been in my apartment. And so I'm like, wow, this is disconcerting. So we go around the wall, and then there's a fireplace. And on the fireplace are these solid gold Peruvian dolls, like little bitty, like maybe 10 inches tall with like moving limbs. And they were ancient. And I said, oh my God. She goes, don't touch them. And I'm like, those are the coolest things I've ever seen. Where'd you get them? And she goes, oh, my daddy liked them, so he took them from the British Museum. I'm like, took them? Like, you took my art? And she ignored me. Then she showed me there was an Indian prince who had been in love with her, and he gave her this tray of silver combs and all these things that were encrusted. And she's showing me all this weird stuff. And she goes, listen, a girl's going to come by in a minute, and I want you to tell her that this is the best job you've ever had because Epstein, Jeffrey, really wants her working for him. And I'm like thinking to myself, this is the worst job I could ever have. And so I'm not going to be able to do that. Right. And I'm like, okay. And so then she sits me down and shows me the photo albums. And it's all the royals. She had like 17 of these photo albums. It's her dad's state funeral. It's all this stuff. Then this girl shows up and she's like, I remember she was 19. She was beautiful, not exceptionally beautiful, just a specific look. And she had on a scarf and long hair. And Ghislaine goes, tell her how great the job is. And I'm like, the job's great. I'm like not doing a good job. And so Ghislaine leaves the room and I say, get the hell out of here. This is the worst job. They don't pay me. She left. And Ghislaine comes back in and she's like, you'll never do that again. We'll never have you back over here. You will never be allowed to be around any of them. And I'm like, okay.
Deal. You're like, okay, deal.
I was so happy.
Well, now, so that brings me to my second question. It's sort of related, but kind of unrelated. And you've gone into detail a little, as far as you can, about Donald Trump's involvement in this network and Ivana and these people. We just had recently an attempt on Donald Trump's life. So it's a two-part question. Number one, who in this network that Trump is networked up with? Let's just say that that's all true. Who in this network would want to take him out at this point, and for what and why?
Okay,
As
no
number
one,
one.
no one, it
And
was staged.
okay,
Okay,
so that was my second question. What you
yeah,
thought of the entire the
it's
assassination
bullshit.
episode?
It's all bullshit. It's
For
acting.
what purpose, in your opinion?
Okay, to make Donald Trump a victim. They love to be victims. Did you notice how he got all that support? That garbage man? I'm sorry, but I got to tell you, I reported him to the FBI for a reason. And we can't say if it's true because the little girl, the Helmsley Palace offices, 9 o'clock at night, I had to run there because I was so poor I couldn't afford the subway. And I had on knee socks and my running shoes and a running outfit. And Donald Trump walks in and looks at me like, and I was not that cute. I didn't have any makeup on. I'm just a normal sweaty person that ran there. And he's looking at me like I'm his lunch. And he's going and he's laughing and and he smells like an airplane. And I'm like, ugh. And I made an ugly face. And he laughed. He was charming about it. He took it. And Epstein comes in and he goes, no, 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 she's not here for you. Come here. And he took him into another room. And I didn't see in that room, right? But I sat there waiting and I felt awful. And I told Epstein, I want to go home. And he let me go home. And it was just very weird. So the little girl that they harmed, no one had ever heard about Epstein, Sam. You hadn't heard of him because I hadn't told you yet. And so you know about Epstein because of Virginia and me. And that's it.
Right.
And we had to fight like hell to get that known. And that little girl, she bravely told at 13 to her parents, and her parents fought with her, and they threatened her life. You don't understand what we're dealing with. Donald Trump is the biggest part of this there ever was, ever. And so when I reported to the FBI, I said that game show host. And they're like, what game show host? I'm like, that guy, he's really cheesy, blah, 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 he's on modeling. And they go, oh, Trump. Like they knew, the FBI knew he was cheesy. So they're all part of it. They're all part of it. It's a circle jerk. And it
Well,
drives me crazy.
I'm
It drives
sorry
me
you had to go.
crazy.
Yeah, I'm sorry you had to go through
Oh,
that.
thank
And
you.
if you'll indulge me, what you said about Bill Gates and don't eat the cafeteria food that Jeffrey